gosh, look at the crowd.
Come this way.
Those who spread goodness radiate happiness to everyone around them. Introducing LOLC Finance Credit Cards. Fuel the goodness in you.
Good evening and welcome to LMDtv. I'm Ashwini Vethakan. Joining us this week on Talking Business is the presiding partner of the Moot Court Bench, Sulaiman Rameez. Welcome to the show, Sulaiman. It's good to have you with us.
Thanks, Ashwini. It's a pleasure to be here.
Our first question for this evening, Sulaiman. What are the technological advancements in the global legal profession?
Well, that's most certainly an interesting question. See, the legal profession is traditionally one that wasn't privy to a lot of legal, tech advancements. But since of late, there has been a lot of progress in that particular area. I think the term coined is legal tech. So it ranges, you have primarily two types of legal tech, I think. One is the kind of tech that helps lawyers and law firms with their practice. So you would have things like, document automation, things that help you with your practice, with billing, how you manage your clients. And on the other side, you also have a branch of legal tech that is challenging the traditional lawyer. In a sense, they have created using, things like artificial intelligence and just machine learning, that they're trying to automate the smaller tasks that lawyers can do so that people can directly perhaps use a software and get legal advice or get a contract drafted without having to approach a lawyer for that. So it's quite vast, and there has been, I think, significant improvement. A lot of international law firms have adopted a lot of legal tech, and companies, some companies have preferred the software over the traditional approach, and some have a hybrid mechanism, I think.
So in that case, to what extent have local law firms adapted to technology and innovation?
We most certainly have some excellent local law firms. Recently, the 2021 Asia Awards were out, and quite a few of our local law firms were featured on that. I think the approach here is a little different. To be frank, I don't think I can speak of the exact practices of the local law firms, but any law firm involved in commercial practice will have to keep pace with the businesses that they have as clients. Because I know for a fact that businesses are adapting and evolving at an extremely fast rate. They're into artificial intelligence and machine learning. They're trying to maximize processes. And if they want to retain them as clients, then it's only natural that the law firms also keep pace. I mean, a small example I can share is you don't have to look at the complicated softwares. I think a lot of businesses use simple softwares like Microsoft and Google for collaborative tasks. And I know it's not a big deal for, I think, a lot of the younger people, but in the profession you have senior people, and that can be a challenge. And I'm happy to say that I think a lot of them have adapted to it really well, and they have learned the ropes. Perhaps they're better than us in using those.
Emotional intelligence and customer experience are becoming vital in the legal profession. Do you agree with this statement?
Certainly. I think emotional intelligence is something that is vital for any profession that deals with people. And law is one such profession. I think 90% of the time we are dealing with people. And the other 10% of the time we are behind a computer drafting documents. And different types of people, right? You have to deal with your clients, and you have different kinds of clients. Some of them are easy to work with, some of them not so much. Sometimes you're going to have to take a step back and really think about what your client's interests are, and you balance that with what your client can and can't do. And businesses, that's, there's this saying that lawyers can never be good businessmen because it's just diametrically opposed. They're always looking for what are the risks involved in an action, whereas the businesses are looking at how do you keep pushing the boundaries, exploring the gray areas. So you really have to take a step back and analyze what kind of risks your client wants to get into. And to do that, you have to be able to sit down and listen to them and understand why and how they do what they do. So absolutely, I think emotional intelligence is key.
Sulaiman, let's look at local corporate law. Could you give us some insight into the significant changes in Sri Lanka's corporate law in recent times?
When you say corporate law, I think that can be quite vast, because businesses, depending on what they do, can trigger many types of law, intellectual property, land law, labor law, data security. But if you are to stick to in corporate law in a general sense, I think the biggest change was in 2007. Sri Lanka saw a new Companies Act number 7 of 2007, and that was a game changer because it really harmonized Sri Lanka's approach to corporate law with the rest of the world, largely, if I may say so. But recently, and 2007 was also the year where they started drafting a new Securities and Exchange Commission Act, and that act came into being very recently this year. It's Act number 19 of 2021, and that has some excellent features. My favorite of which is there seems to be a very robust mechanism for investor protection, including getting freezing orders from the Commercial High Court, if I can recall correctly. And for businesses, the company registrar in June last year introduced what we call the EROC system, which is essentially an online mechanism to register your company. And I think that's very useful versus having to go physically and stand in a line. So in terms of ease of doing business, I think that's a big win.
And on that note, we'll be going in for a short break. Welcome back as we continue our conversation with the presiding partner of the Moot Court Bench, Sulaiman Rameez. Sulaiman, what is the value of alternative dispute resolution for businesses, and how well are local companies using this option?
ADR is primarily, simply three forms, right? If I'm to really summarize it, you have arbitration, mediation, and negotiation. There are so many others, but for this purpose, let's keep it limited to those three. Arbitration is what's most commonly used in Sri Lanka. And if I am to summarize it in a sentence, think of it like private dispute resolution, where instead of going to courts, two parties agree that they take their dispute to someone independent. And I think to really maximize the benefit of ADR, you need to have a substantial amount of knowledge in it. Otherwise, it's quite easy to get derailed. But the companies that do use them have found them to be extremely effective. It's faster. They have the added benefit of confidentiality. And generally, I think they have more control over how the dispute resolution process takes place versus you completely yielding control to lawyers and the judiciary when it comes to a court case.
In your opinion, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the legal profession?
I think like any asking profession, it's not for the faint of heart. You really have to burn a lot of midnight oil. But other than that, if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. Personally, I really enjoy it. The entire process has been a treat. But I'm extremely early. I haven't even begun my career. I'm technically not a lawyer yet. I've just finished my exams and completed my apprenticeship. But that's definitely one drawback. There's a lot of hard work involved, and if you're not able to balance your life, it can really take you for a spin.
Now, Sulaiman, global wars are raging on legal talent, and law firms are reluctantly offering remote working opportunities even though COVID numbers are dropping. Is this model feasible in Sri Lanka?
Well, off the top of my head, I can tell you that the mechanism for recruitment internationally and in Sri Lanka is very different. So internationally, you have this culture of having recruitment fairs where graduates and third-year law students would go to these fairs and meet law firms and established practitioners and say, "Hey, I'd like to work for you," and they throw their CV in the mix. But in Sri Lanka, it's very different. My analysis so far is I feel like there is a lot of supply, in a sense there are a lot of lawyers in Sri Lanka, but there are a limited number of good and well-established firms and practitioners to be able to accommodate all these young budding lawyers. So it's quite a challenge. So you really have to, I think, stand out to be able to secure a good training contract of sorts if you are to make it.
Our final question for this evening, Sulaiman. What is your take on the quality of skills at present in the profession? And are there any rooms for improvement?
I think we have produced some fantastic and exceptional lawyers over the past several years and decades. A lot of them are working for international law firms. The lawyers we have here are exceptional in their own means. I think the skill level in Sri Lanka is quite high, but again, in any profession you have, it's a wide spectrum, right? It depends on how much experience you have. It depends on how invested you are in the profession, whether they are doing it full time or they are doing it part time. But generally speaking, I think a lot of the lawyers have retained the respect that the community has had for the profession, and hopefully it will continue to be that way.
Well, this has been an interesting conversation, but unfortunately we've reached the end of our segment. Thank you for joining us on the show this evening, Sulaiman.
Thanks for having me, Ashwini. It's been a pleasure.
Coming up, we have an update from the island's burning issues. Stay tuned.
You love the feeling of being renewed. To stay beautiful every single day. To breathe just like we do, because you are truly delicate, protecting the ones who've been with us through the years. With Sayalac Care, the only wood coating that truly protects you. Sayalac Wood Coatings from JAT.
Welcome back to the show, and here's an update from Sri Lanka's burning issues. While the number of COVID-19 cases has been steadily declining since the beginning of September, health officials continue to warn the public to adhere to health guidelines as the country isn't free of the virus yet. Against this backdrop, respondents to the LMD Nielsen IQ Business Confidence Index, or BCI, cited the pandemic as their main concern in October. A majority, 83% of those polled by Nielsen IQ, cite the impact of COVID-19 as the most pressing issue for business in Sri Lanka today. This marks an increase from the 73% who said so in September. Moreover, challenges on the economic front persist, with numerous price hikes announced at the beginning of the month. Given this, concern regarding the impact of inflation on business is on the rise, as indicated by 68% of the sample survey, up from 36% in the previous month. Bribery and corruption is also considered to be a major problem for businesses, according to 47% of respondents. When it comes to the most pressing national issue facing Sri Lanka, the spread of the virus remains the main concern, going by 79% versus 64% in the preceding month of the responses. The economy is next in line, with 71% of those consulted by the pollsters citing it as an issue. Additionally, the breakdown on children's education of 38%, bribery and corruption at 32%, and inadequate per capita incomes at 10% are considered to be issues warranting national attention. In other news, according to Ceylon Electricity Board, or the CEB, United Trade Union Alliance convener Ranjan Jayalal, there will be no strike resulting in an island-wide power failure. However, the CEB Trade Union Alliance recently warned that there would be trade union action on November 3rd, similar to the 72-hour trade union action experienced in 1996. The strike will be launched against the government's deal to transfer shares of the Yugadanavi LNG power plant in Keravalapitia to a US-based company and handing over the monopoly on bringing and distributing LNG to a private company without tender procedures. Meanwhile, while addressing the World Leaders Summit COP26 held in Glasgow, Scotland on Monday, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said Sri Lanka is proud to be a co-lead of the Global Energy Compact for no new coal power. The COP26, the UN Climate Change Conference, held as critical moment in the fight against climate change, is attended by around 25,000 people representing a wide range of fields, including heads of state, government representatives, scholars, and business people from 197 countries. It is reported that this is the largest conference ever to be held in the United Kingdom. It is essential that the world's largest emitters of greenhouse gases fulfill their national commitments and assist developing nations navigate through the climate crisis, the President said, and called upon all nations to work together in a spirit of true cooperation to overcome this crisis and sustain humanity and our planet. And finally, the Hippo Spirit vessel, which is carrying rejected Chinese organic fertilizer, is now located some 61 nautical miles away from Weligama, according to marine traffic websites. On the 31st of October, marine traffic websites confirmed that the Hippo Spirit vessel, also sailing as Seyo Explorer, has entered the Sea of Sri Lanka, and at the time the vessel was located close to the Hambantota port. The Hippo Spirit is carrying tons of rejected Chinese fertilizer to Sri Lanka, and it was early reported that the Hippo Spirit did not return to China after the first samples were rejected by Sri Lanka, and after taking an unnecessary detour to Singapore, has instead made its way back to Sri Lankan seas. And that's all we have for you this week. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.